Off to sea we go, we'll come sing a line till the day
Well, an gédal sias firkin fólse roh ilioch agus muidig cortús leis séúr an cóisiar áras an Uachtaráin. Agus tá nui is cóisiar spéisial den ceann se tar éis an brúmór chuir COVID arin agus bhí arin beidir na cóisiar chorar ceall om din Chicago som blir en revision. Agus da nu da var son is blir en special som blir en show. May I say how welcome you all are this afternoon to Áras and Uachtaráin, and as I have just said, what a particular year this is, as we've in fact moved past the restrictions that were there on us through COVID when we had to suspend what had been really something which is very important for so many different, our citizenry, drawn from different aspects of Irish society, the Áras and Uachtaráin garden parties. But we're back, and I think this is a wonderful, particularly today, because we're celebrating something special that does indeed take into account the consequences of COVID. During COVID, our booksellers, our publishers, our writers, all our librarians, and I'm speaking of the human beings in the libraries rather than the machines, I think we owe so much to them for all of what they did for us. And that is why Sabina and I decided that we would have the very first garden party to celebrate the book, the making of the book, the binding of the book, the selling of the book, the reading of the book, the handling of the book. So all of you associated with the book and laur is comacrin, tiagwalata agile, whatever connection with it, you are absolutely so welcome. And of course, this is a special year too, because we're celebrating what many people would also say, the book, and of course, Ulysses. And I have to make a confession here. One of those people who did still speak to Stephen Joyce before he died, he said to me that he thought too much emphasis was placed in Ulysses, that it was distracting attention from both the earlier and later work. Now, he had a point. So therefore, all of you who are intoxicated, whether you're doing it in the installment system or whether you're doing it in one great binge, do remember and make your commitment to all of James Joyce's work. I think celebrating the centenary of the publication of Ulysses, I think as well, reminds us of how much we owe to independent publishers who provide such a vital service to our society by publishing the good, original, thought-provoking, and indeed often eccentric or idiosyncratic work that moves the world of literature forward and enables the discovery and emergence of new and exciting literary voices. To them we owe a great deal. Many of you here today, may I take the opportunity of thanking you all for all you do for Irish society in terms of culture and the promotion of good literature. But the founding by Sylvia Beach, hello Broad, come up here today. You remember that, right? Yeah, he was here a few years ago before COVID, so he was just saying, to hell with COVID. But the founding by Sylvia Beach of the first Shakespeare Company in 1919 signified a critical moment in Ireland's literary history. That's kind of obvious now. But 2 years later, as James Joyce struggled to find anyone willing to publish Ulysses, indeed when no English or American publisher would touch his manuscript, it was bookshop owner Sylvia Beach who saw its worth and taking an enormous gamble sourced typists, subscribers, typesetters, and printers in order to bring the now world-renowned Ulysses to publication under the imprint of Shakespeare and Company. Like so many independent publishers, Sylvia had the genius that enabled her to view things in a very different way from mainstream publishers, a way that was experimental, creative, and audacious, guided by a desire not to reach a huge audience or motivated to publish something because it was a financially viable one, and easy to market, but because of its intrinsic importance to herself and as a vindication of curiosity. I've always regarded the book itself as the taking of the private and making it public, the inner, interminable insecurity of the person delivered into a single day. Now, may I say how pleased we are? I'm very pleased that we're joined this afternoon by my friend Declan Kybert. And Declan, who has acknowledged himself in his own words that the irony that is always there, that a book which set out to celebrate the common man and woman has endured the sad fate of never being read by many of them. But he has in fact actually done much to demolish that in his own wonderful Ulysses and Áras. And I hope you will see that book along with Áras on display in the main dining room. I think it is an expert introduction to the book, to the novel, and one that has allowed those whom the book celebrates to reclaim it and to enjoy it. Yes, Sylvia Beach took what many have called a significant risk on James Joyce, and that is something that many of our independent publishers here today will recognise, because for you, publishing is a labour of love, prompted by a desire to identify and promote unusual treasures, to publish that which strikes you as unique and exceptional, to provide an outlet for new and different voices, and to introduce readers to remarkable and diverse literary talents. By remaining responsive to those different and original voices and providing outlets for forms of literature whose audience may be niche, you protect the cultural space and the integrity of the artists who populate it. You publish the poetry, the drama, the untried forms of literary fiction, which enrich that cultural space, and in doing so, generously support many of those who are both gifted and creative and brave, who play such an important role in our democracy and in our culture. And may I also take this opportunity then to thank those who own and manage the independent bookshops, which are so important to the cultural life of our nation. And I wrote that, I thought, back to more than 25 years ago, when I was the last opponent of the move to end the fixed price of the book. L'Exception Culturelle, the French had in fact almost lasted to the end, but they didn't. The Austrians did. But in fact, it was the idea of the book and bookshops in that world as something to be commodified and reduced to the merciless impact of the market was always wrong. But there we are where we are now. And many of you have become deeply embedded, which is so important, those of you who have independent bookshops. You are embedded in the communities in which you operate, not just often selling the book, but creating opportunities for engagement between writers and readers, or meeting points for book lovers or aspiring writers who wish to come together in a spirit of shared interest and mutual support. And how good it is to note that the number of people, book sales are up, and number of people going to the local bookshops. And that is what you should do. Go and live, handle books, lift them, look at them, take care of them, and buy some of them. Our independent bookshops are places in which customers become friends, returning loyally across years and decades, seeking out the books that may be unavailable elsewhere, or recommendations for further reading, spaces in which people congregate for readings and launches, and book clubs and creative writing workshops, thereby bringing culture right into the centre of our communities to be enjoyed by all. They're so much more than retail places or shops or agents of commerce. They make an invaluable contribution to literature and its enjoyment. And I'm delighted that so many of the independent bookshops are represented here today. Firkin Forger, Oveliagus, Tris Lim Levis, Gam Wickeslip, as a metatoshian, as some culture, Nihoand and Gluenshots, as Naglunta Tolia. I do want to welcome as well a dear, dear friend, Enrico Terranone, who last year published an Italian translation of Ulysses, and of course has been translated Finnegan's Wake. It is inspiring and remarkable to know that Leopold Bloom's legendary walk around Dublin is enjoyed by readers around the world thanks to such as Terranone. Enrico is a magnificent translator, philosopher, who understands the whole purpose of what indeed Joyce, the migrant, the exile, was right. I think we must always be careful as well. There is a time, I think, for us, on behalf of all those who held power, to acknowledge sin. The idea that Joyce was not, his funeral was not attended, that Joyce was neglected, that Joyce's book was not circulated, and so forth. That is why he must never be turned into an object of event. He's not an event. We are celebrating in the home of the president the genius of somebody who paid a rich price for what he gave to the world beyond the borders of Ireland. As always, Bloomsday, for both myself and Sabina, has called to mind Deirdre O'Connell, who would have celebrated her 83rd birthday this week. Founder of the Focus Theatre, Deirdre played her own integral role in the cultural life of our nation. Indeed, I'm sure many of you will have your own memories of Deirdre and her much loved and respected theatre. So today let us remember her and all those who've taken risks for Irish culture. May I conclude too by thanking all those of you who worked so hard to make today possible. But before I do anything else, I want to thank Tommy Tiernan for Covilshire. He's in the corner. Yes, indeed, he mentioned, he's quite right, in relation to what he himself has brought as a performer, is that he has brought depth and range to his performances, and he has taken risks in relation to what television might be. But also as well, you now know he has made a confession of the kind of things that are standing behind it, the quality of the philosophical work of John Moriarty and John O'Donoghue and all of those. John Moriarty, who once said that he was Grand Canyon deep in spirituality. My friend Mark Hedman said if he hears that once again, he'll make sure he's at the bottom of the canyon. But that's not that. At any event, here we all are. I do want to very, very, very much to thank those who've worked so hard at Áras to make this a wonderful occasion for you. And you will have much to enjoy. Simon Morgan, Nola Grady, Camille O'Sullivan, Declan, who will be speaking to you, the stunning, and of course, above all else, all in the hands of the maestro, Tommy Tiernan. Now, Sabina and I are very much looking forward to many listening to so much more now. I want to thank the Office of Public Works. We salute the hard work, unfailing good humour and not least culinary skills of the OPW staff here in Áras and Uachtaráin. I'm so glad to welcome them all back. They are in fact the people who are looking after you, and they do so with a smile. And they have been looking forward, as I have, towards the return of the garden parties. That's it. Thank you, Broad. The Secretariat for all the organisation and planning that has gone into the events for this year. I do want to thank Philip Sweeney and Arcana for the sound and technical support, the Civil Defence, the John of God's assistance, the Defence Forces and Gashka, and our thanks for the assistance of all our friends. I've mentioned the John of God, the Defence Forces and Gashka. And Sabina and I, all I have left to say is this. I sínta gan radeg will midarash, mille buigas as the buckle tame, agus tá súlán go muine sib go léir tean bas an tróna. Ní féidir le éon rud a dhéanamh faoin aimseir, ach cahamid dollarag. So may I just say to you, I just hope that you have a most enjoyable afternoon, and particularly more than anything else, to see gathered in the one space the makers of the book, the binders of the book, the sellers of the book, the promoters of the book, the publishers, and everything like that. I couldn't think of a better community of citizens who are promoting something that is important, not only for this generation, but for all of the thoughtful generations to come. And Sabina and I have had the opportunity of meeting so many of you as a right. Let us all, in fact, then, celebrate the work associated with James Joyce, the work associated with writers, the work associated with yourselves, and the importance of something that was important, was elusive for James Joyce, the importance of friendship. Enjoy the afternoon. Mille buigas.